this feels right. Am I in the frame? We're gonna adjust just a little bit. Okay. Hi, welcome back to my channel. Why am I always so awkward in the beginning of these? Okay. Yeah, welcome back to my channel. I did not film a video last week because I was at Ocean's Calling, where I got this lovely 2nd-degree sunburn you see on my nose despite using sunscreen and aloe and wearing a hat and getting tan everywhere else. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Like, I had the idea for this video and I was like, I have very limited time to film this week because I'm just genuinely so busy with work. I have a better lighting situation that I will test out in the next video. I just, like, with the small window of time I have to film something, I'm just like, we're gonna make it as simple as possible and not try anything new. So here we are. I am fresh out of the shower, so my hair's still wet because, much like summer, I do not like the feeling of a hairdryer. But yeah, we're gonna talk about one of my favorite tropes, which is something I've been, like, wanting to talk about because it's something I've been wanting to, like, try more in my own writing, but I'll get into that later. But I wanted to talk about a trope that I just love. It's one of my favorite things about, like, it's one of my favorite, like, tropes to find in a book. 'Cause, like, it's not really advertised as a trope. It's just something you kind of, like, find when you start reading a book, at least from what I can tell in my experience. And that is where the setting is a character. And let me explain what I mean by that. So, like, the setting of the book is so integral, but okay, I tried to take that clip multiple times and it just keeps coming out integral, so that's how we're gonna say it. Yeah, so when the setting is so integral to the, I'm so sorry, to the story that it becomes a character. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, the most well-known examples in literature that I can explain, and I think John Steinbeck does a really good job of this trope. Having only read Of Mice and Men and then snippets of The Grapes of Wrath, just the way that he describes the setting, that's, like, one of the things I enjoyed about reading his work, is that just the setting is just so specifically described, like, in so much detail that it just, like, flows so naturally that, like, the setting becomes a character. And then if you think about, I'm trying to think of how I can explain it, but so in Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, like, London is a character. And we talked about this in my women's literature class that I took in spring of 2019, and the professor explained it way better than I could, but it's just, like, the way that London is so prominently featured in, like things like Big Ben and, like, things that people who lived in London would recognize, like, it becomes a character in that way. In The Great Gatsby, New York and different, like, East Egg and West Egg, yeah, but, like, different, like, the Plaza Hotel, like, things that New Yorkers would know. New York becomes a character of The Great Gatsby. And I think this does work really well with settings that are real places, like Northern California in Of Mice and Men, and London in Mrs. Dalloway, and New York in The Great Gatsby. This works, or for the most part, because East Egg and West Egg aren't real. But and even Gatsby for the most part, but it like, it works really well with locations that are real. You can also do it with made-up locations, which is something that I'll talk more about when I talk about, like, how I try to integrate that, or have been starting to try to integrate that more, just thinking about how much I love that trope and how underused it is in my own writing. But I wanted to talk about the book that is just, like, when I think of this trope, like, this book just does it so well, and that is Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. I love this book so much. I read it a couple years ago when I had to, it was, like, the book that was selected to be taught to 8th grade when I was teaching 8th grade, and I just fell in love with this book. Like, the story is really good, but just the way that Portland, Oregon is a character. As somebody who lived in Vancouver, Washington, which is also mentioned in the book, not in a very happy way, but as somebody who lived in Vancouver, Washington for a few years, which is, like, right on the border of Portland. I worked in Portland, spent lots of time in Portland, just seeing all of these like references to things that I knew, like McMinimans, Jansen Beach, Pioneer Place, like all these like little things, Powell's books. I ended up making for the 8th grade team, I don't remember if the other teachers used it, but I made a slideshow of like pictures of these places from my phone from when I lived in that area, for like background building. I was like, you know, when they talk about Pioneer Place, this is, you know, me here in 2018 or 2017. When they talk about Vancouver, Washington, this was my house in Vancouver, this is what the houses looked like. And just like stuff like that, because it just made me feel really connected to the book. And it was like, I don't want to say like an inside joke, but it's like just that much more special if you know those places. And so, like, just setting aside the brilliance of the story here, just like the prominence of Portland, Oregon, and how integral Portland is to the plot, to the story, is just, yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. I love that trope so much, and to see it happen with a place that I was so familiar with. Yeah, highly recommend. Love this book. Love the fact that Portland is so prevalent, so prevalently featured. Love it. Another series that I read that I think does this trope not quite as well as Piecing Me Together, but like I was like getting vibes for like I could picture myself in that setting. I could picture myself in that place. Is actually it's 2 series, but it's by the same author, Lauren Miracle. Her, I ate these books up in middle school, like genuinely, like it's just such a key part of my adolescence was reading. Like I read this book in a day. That was very rare for me in the 7th grade or the 6th grade or whenever it was that I got this. I got it from the library. I actually picked up this particular copy from the thrift store, which is why it was 75 cents. Slay. But yeah, I just, and then her other series, TTYL, the correct version, the nostalgic version, not the updated new version with social media references. The way that like Atlanta, Georgia is referenced, like it made me want to go there. I've still never been to Atlanta, fun fact, like aside from the airport, but like the way she mentions things like Little 5 Points or that's the first thing that came to mind, but just like things like certain stores that were local to the area, or like University of Georgia, things like that, just made me want to go, made me want to see that place. And so I hold these in high regard as well. Like these are some of my favorite like nostalgic cozy rereads, specifically the nostalgic version, not the updated version. I hate when authors do that. That's a video for another day. But yeah, so I recommend these as well. They're not quite as like meaningful plot-wise as Piecing Me Together, but they are fun and cozy, for me at least. So that leads me into my like, I don't want to say attempts, but like my desire to integrate that trope into my own writing. And I think I was more like gung-ho to do it when I thought I was going to set Violet's novel in the University of Delaware, or that series in the University of Delaware, but then like had to make up a fake town, and then just like my insecurity about making up a fake town in Delaware, where like it's a very different aspect of, like it's a very different thing than making up a fake town in a big state like California. I talked about that in another video. But just like my insecurities about that kind of detracted me from doing it as much as I wanted to. Like you'll probably see it more in the companion novel, but I mean, I'm getting my line in its bat for Violet any day now. So maybe like, I mean, so obviously there's still time for me to integrate this trope more, but I think it's definitely like from what I have done on the companion novel, I think it's definitely going to show through a lot more in that one, just like Brooktown University and that town kind of being a character in a way. Like I want the readers to be able to picture themselves there. And I think that's, I don't know if this is like an autism thing or just like a me thing, or just like I need to take more creative writing classes thing, because like trust me, like a master's in creative writing is on my bucket list. Like it's something I do want to pursue someday. Right now I'm I'm pursuing grad school specifically for my field, which is teaching. So we're not quite at that point yet, but it is on my list. All of that to say, like I have this thing where I can very much in my head picture how I want the scene to look, how I want it to feel, even background music sometimes. Like I can picture like exactly how I want the reader to visualize what I'm about to write. And then I go to write it and I'm just like, she smiled. He touched her hand. Like, I'm at a loss for words. And it's like, I'll read things that I wrote in middle school, and I did a way better job of it in middle school. I don't know what happened to my brain, but it'll be like, I was so good at imagery and stuff back then that I just don't know where I lost that, because I'll try to do it now and it just doesn't feel right. And so I'll end up taking stuff out and then it's just not what I want. And so it's something I'm working on. It's something that I will be asking for help with in editing, and something that I will be eventually pursuing when I take grad school classes in creative writing someday, when my books sell enough for me to pursue grad school on my own budget and not rely on my school district to reimburse me. So that's that on that. But yeah, it's something that with the project that I'm planning to pursue next, it is set, I did decide to set that project in San Jose, but I'm not going to talk too much about it because, again, who knows if that's actually the project I'm going to pursue after University Story, but I did decide to set it in San Jose, and so, like, I want to make references to things that, like, I want the people who also grew up in San Jose to be able to read it and, like, kind of feel like they're in on something, like I felt reading Piecing Me Together about Portland. And, like, you know, but, like, the fact that, like, the book is set in a very fictional part of San Jose, like I made up a fictional high school. I made up multiple fictional high schools. I made up a fictional neighborhood, but, like, I still want to be able to reference things like Lenardi's and La Victoria and, like, just things that I remember from living in San Jose in the time period in which the book is set, which, not to get too much into it, but it is set in the early 2000s. That's kind of like a thing. Anyway, not going to talk too much about that. And then, like, my other major project that, like, constantly has been fighting for my attention since, like, 2012 when I started it, that is very much set in a fictional town, and the amount of time I have spent developing that fictional town over the years, like, I was writing another story set in that town before I started that project, and, like, the amount of, like I've made that town in Sims. I have, like, visualized, like, to be able to visualize it, I've made it in Sims so I could see, like, this is far away from this is close to this is where this is, and, like just visualize what the buildings look like and all this. Like, I put so much effort into that fictional town. Like, it would be a disservice of me to not make that town a character, even if it is fictional. So, like, that is something that I'm definitely planning to heavily work on with that project, which is, again, not, like, will be far in the future, because I have 2 more books for University Story after Violet's novel comes out, and that's not even out yet. So we're dealing with my brain being my brain. But yeah, yeah, and pivoting back to University Story because that is my focus project right now. I made Violet from Portland, Oregon. And I chose that because I felt very connected to Portland despite having only lived there for a few years, not having grown up there. Like, I didn't want to make all my characters from San Jose, California, like, or some version of the Bay Area, California. Like, I wanted to have some, like, variety in there, and, like, I already have a character from New Jersey, a character from Delaware in this series, and I needed Violet to come from somewhere far away, like I did. So I picked Portland. And so she references Portland. She references very specific things about Portland that I think will like make people who are from Portland or who lived in Portland for some time feel the way I did when I was reading Piecing Me Together. I keep going back to Piecing Me Together. This is not a review of Piecing Me Together, but and I do plan in the sequel, so not the companion novel, but in, like, the sequel that takes place, like, the following school year, I do plan for there to be a portion of the book that takes place in Portland, Oregon, like a chapter of the book that takes place in Portland. Maybe 2 chapters. Haven't quite gotten to that point yet with the sequel, because it's going to be towards the end. But like I told my editor my plans for that, and like why, like you won't see any scenes take place in Portland in Violet's novel or the companion novel, obviously, because she's not the main character of that one, but you won't see any scenes take place in Portland, Oregon. She will reference it a lot, but you won't see any scenes take place there, and that's for a symbolic reason that I will talk about when the sequel comes out. I do plan for there to be a chapter or 2 that take place in Portland in the sequel, and I am very excited to reference things and to like hopefully make the reader feel like they too are in Portland, Oregon, because that was very special for me, reading Piecing Me Together, and I didn't even grow up there. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about Portland. I'm just gonna like hold this book and talk about Portland. That's what I'm doing with my day. It's like, and like not to like keep talking about this book, because again, this video is not supposed to be just a review of this book. It is me talking about a trope that I love that happens to be featured in this book. But I don't even know if like the reason I love it so much is because I just feel like so like, and it's weird to me that I feel so connected to Portland, Oregon, when I, 1, didn't technically live there, 2, only lived in the vicinity of there for 3 years, grew up in San Jose, have now lived in Delaware for longer than I lived in Portland, or near Portland. It's easy. It's like, I'm like, yeah, I lived in Portland, except I didn't. But yeah, I just, for a while, I have like felt like someday I'm going to move back to Portland. Like that's where I'm eventually going to end up, is Portland, Oregon. That's where I'm going to like settle down. If I decide to settle down somewhere, I'm like, I watch van life videos so much, okay? Like I don't know if I can like just stick to one place for the rest of my life. Cause like having lived in Delaware since 2018, like it's starting to feel a wee bit claustrophobic. And I'm just like, last year I was like actively pursuing moving to the West Coast, and Portland was like my #1 where I was looking. And then just like, I'm not gonna get into all of the stuff that happened, but I obviously still in Delaware, ended up taking a different job in Delaware. So I'm still here, but I haven't let go of like that desire to get back to Portland, sooner rather than later. So like, obviously, like I love my job, like I love my students, I love my friends, I love my apartment actually. Not so crazy about the town that I live in, but I love my apartment. But it's just like, I can't help but feel very called to Portland. And so it's like not something I'm actively pursuing right now, but it's also not something that like, if an opportunity popped up for me to move to Portland at the end of the school year, like I can't say that I wouldn't take it, you know? So that's just like, I don't know if that's like why I love this book so much, like, or like obviously I love the plot of the book, okay, but like the actual storyline of the book, I love that, but I don't know if that's like why this book is like what sticks out to me so much about like an example of this trope, is because it's Portland. And I just like, I don't know, like so yeah, I have very strong feelings about Portland, Oregon, to make a long story short. That's what I wanted to talk about, is just one of my favorite tropes, and then some recommendations for novels if that is a trope that you enjoy, and if you have any recommendations for novels. Like those were the ones that like off the top of my head would come to mind, but like if you know of any novels, like particularly I like contemporary, like realistic fiction, or I want to say historical fiction, but like modern historical, like 1950s and later, like anything in that genre, that has a very strong, the setting as a character trope. Like if you have recommendations, like I have a constantly growing TBR, wouldn't mind throwing a few more things on there. But yeah, imagery is something that I am striving to get better at. I know, like with Saving Summer, I feel like because I very much wanted that to be a standalone novel, I didn't want to get too attached to the like Bay Area adjacent town that I was setting it in. Like, it wasn't meant to be a real place. I didn't want to get too attached to the town because I didn't want to write a sequel to it, basically, because like that's like what would I do with a sequel to Saving Summer? What would possibly happen in a sequel? But I just so I was like very much trying not to get attached to the setting there, so I made it a little more bland than I personally like. So, and I don't want to say I regret that. Like, I think Saving Summer does what it needs to do. But in my future work, that is something that I want to explore more because it is a trope that I love to read. So yeah, a little bit of a shorter video this week. Like I said, I had a very limited window in which I could film. I also have second-degree sunburn on my nose, so not really thrilled about being on camera, but I skipped last week because I just quite simply did not have any time to film anything. So I wanted to give y'all something this week, and this is something that I've been wanting to talk about. It's been on my list of like videos I want to make. Like, I want to do a series talking about my favorite tropes, and this is just like the most pressing one on my mind, like the one that I think about the most, I think. Like, I think it's the one I think about the most. I don't know, it was the first one that came to mind when I was thinking like, how could I start this series? So I don't think my next video will be me talking about tropes that I like, but like I have several video ideas like in a notes file on my phone of like stuff I want to talk about, and just this was on there, and I'm like, this is something I can knock out in probably less than half an hour, which is good because that's like, I only have an hour to do this, and like I'll edit it later, but like as far as filming goes, like I don't have to have makeup done or like a cute outfit on when I'm editing, okay? Like, I don't have to look presentable when I'm editing. It's a little bit different than being on the camera. So but yeah, I do, I'll probably like, when I'm like in a situation like this where like I don't have a lot of time to film, but I want to put out something meaningful, something like planned out and thought out, I will probably use windows like this to make videos about tropes I like, because there are others on my list. Don't know what else to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos of me talking about tropes I like, please let me know, because that is something that I can do in times like these where I have a small window to film, but still want to make something like meaningful and thought out. So yeah. Anyway, this has been great. Hope you enjoyed the video, even though it's a little bit shorter. But I will be back next week with maybe a little bit longer video, or maybe I'll just learn to say things in a concise way. Who knows? But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time I make a video. Bye!